3, text number 16. Abrahma Bhuvanat Lokaha Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaha Avartinaha Arjuna Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punaha Janma Na Vidyate Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate
Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate
O Brahma Bhavana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate
Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punarvartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate
Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate. Online. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka
Punaravartino Arjuna Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya
Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya
Punarjanma Na Vidyate
Punarjanma Na Vidyate Brahma,
Brahma,
up to the Brahmaloka planet.
up to the Brahmaloka planet.
Bhuvanath,
Bhuvanath,
from the planetary systems.
from the planetary systems.
Lokaha,
Lokaha,
planets.
planets.
Punaha,
Punaha,
again.
again.
Avartinaha,
Avartinaha,
returning.
returning.
Arjuna,
Arjuna,
O Arjuna,
Lord,
Mam,
Mam,
unto me.
unto me.
Upetya,
Vedya,
arriving.
right,
To,
to,
but.
part.
Kaunteya,
Kaunteya,
O son of Kunti.
son of Kunti.
Punajanma,
Punajanma,
rebirth.
rebirth.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Vidyate,
Vidyate,
takes two.
takes.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Translation with repetition. From the highest planet
From the highest planet
in the material world
in the material world
down to the lowest,
down to the lowest.
all are places of misery
All are places of misery.
wherein
Wherein
repeated birth and death take place.
repeated birth and death takes place.
But one
One
who attains to my abode,
who attains to my abode,
O son of Kunti,
O son of Kunti,
never takes birth again.
never takes birth again.
Prabhupada, Vaishnava Prabhupada. All kinds of yogis, karma, jnana, hatha, etc., eventually have to attain devotional perfection in bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness before they can go to Krishna's transcendental abode and never return. Those who attain the highest material planets or the planets of the demigods are again subjected to repeated birth and death. As persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people in higher planets such as Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, and Indraloka fall down to earth. The practice of sacrifice called Panchagni Vidya, recommended in the Katha Upanishad, enables one to achieve Brahmaloka. But if in Brahmaloka one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness, then he must return to earth. Those who progress in Krishna consciousness in the higher planets are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets. At the time of universal devastation, are transferred to the eternal spiritual kingdom. When there is devastation of this material universe, Brahma and his devotees, who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness, are all transferred to the spiritual universe and to specific spiritual planets according to their desires. Thus ends the Transcendental Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyantya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Rama. So we are reading verse 16 from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 8, attaining the Supreme. So if one looks very carefully, one can see that there are a lot of similarities from the previous verse. In fact, the previous verse also talks many similar points. So if you look at this verse, Mam Upetya, Punarjanma na vidyate. So these are exactly similar words which are used by Krishna. So if you look carefully the previous verse, so Mamupetya Punarjanma Dukhalayam Ashashvatam Napnuvanti Mahatmanaha Samsiddhim Paramam Gataha. So very much Lord Krishna has spoken in the previous verse itself that what happens to one when one attains the Supreme Lord. When one attains Krishna or Krishna's abode, Punarjanmana Napnuvanti. So, Napnuvanti Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So as soon as one attains Krishna, he no more has to come back to this temporary world which is full of miseries. And who are those people who can attain to that kind of perfection? That is Mahatmanaha. Prabhupada states that they are yogis of devotion. So those who are perfected, and this is said to be the highest perfection, Samsiddhim Paramam Gataha. So one who has achieved Krishna or Krishna's abode, and who are the yogis of devotion, who are the great souls, Mahatmanas. So they don't have to come back to this temporary miserable world. And this is said to be the highest perfection. Now, once one knows the highest perfection, one may think, what else is there to know? So, as we know, sometimes it is not just sufficient to say this is good, but also it is sometimes necessary to say what is not good. Because sometimes we understand only when there is some danger, not just the positive aspects. Sometimes when we say, oh, you eat well, then you will be very healthy. Sometimes that is not sufficient enough for us to understand. But when we say, if you don't eat this, you will get that disease, then one becomes serious. Or sometimes, the negative aspects of some other things are also equally important for us to understand so as to be conscious to make the right choices. So similarly, in this verse again, the Lord is again emphasizing that one might think this miserable world, maybe one may think only this is the temporary material, the earthly planet. Maybe you might want to go to some other place in the material world, thinking that if not this place, some other place will resolve the problem. That may give one the highest perfection. But Lord is making it clear that not only this earthly planet, but any other place in this material world. Brahma Bhuvana Lokaha. So Lokaha, here Prabhupada is translating as planets, and in another place in Bhagavatam, especially in 5th canto, where the planetary systems are described, there the word Lokaha is also means 3 planetary systems. So in some places it is known as Urdhva, Madhya, and Adha. And in other places, the planetary systems are divided by Bhuvva, Swaha. So there are 3 planetary systems in which this material universe can be classified or divided into. And then each of this has different planetary system, different planets. So in all of this, so there are like 6 above the earth and 7 below. So there are the Patala and the higher planetary systems and the middle planetary system. So one may think that I'm in the middle planetary system, but maybe if I go slightly higher to any of the above 6 planetary systems, maybe I can find better way of living life. Maybe that is good. Maybe that will solve some of my problems. So, for example, one must also recognize that the Vedic scriptures are so profound that they not only say that there's life in this planet, but they talk about life being present all across the universe, material universe and the spiritual universe. Unfortunately, sometimes modern scientists think that there is only life in this earth, and there's nowhere else there's life. But again and again, we can see the Vedic scriptures extensively speak about the life in different planetary systems. And Prabhupada also states that modern foolish people, they think that there is only a small universe, a very tiny portion of what they can see, but there is so vast universe, both with this and there are many such universes. And each of them are filled with different planets. And each of them have different facilities for living, some higher and some lower. Just like today, there is a big exploration to go to Mars. So people think, oh, this planet is becoming inhabitable. Maybe there is something higher that we can go, and we can do there some things and live a better life. Or some people are thinking, oh, there might be more minerals in Moon. Maybe I will go there, extract the minerals, and come back and live a better life in Earth and also maybe in the Moon. If I'm not able to live there, I'll just bring the resources from there. So like this, people are foolishly thinking, but that by some material engagement arrangement, that one can go to another planet and come back or stay there using some robotic or spaceships and so on and so forth. But again and again, Srila Prabhupada, especially in the book Easy Journey to Other Planets, Prabhupada again and again refutes this argument that by the laws of nature and by the Vedic scriptures, one cannot just go to another planet just like that. Even that requires qualification. Just like the simple case that we can think of is that of just coming from India or any other place to America. So just like America appears to provide more facilities, appears to have a little more freedom, people from different parts of the world want to come here, hoping that the quality of life is slightly higher than other places. So people think that anyone can come. But it is not so. Because people try to enter the border, immediately there is police force which prevents, you cannot come in. Where is your visa? Where is your passport? They immediately send them back. Or they put them in the prison and they send them back later. So unless there is no qualification, even in this material world, we are not able to we are not able to go from one place to another place, especially one country to another country. So every country requires a certain qualification, a certain process that one has to undergo. Yes, I have no criminal record. I'm going to benefit your country, so on and so forth. And then the visa consulate person will see, okay, this person is meaning for him to come here. He will give us some benefit by some expenditure that he's going to do in our country or whatever. So I will allow him for some time. But again, one must recognize that it is not a permanent stay. One has to go back. So just like the other day, Saika and Ishika's grandmother, she was telling, my visa is expired, I have to go now. I have to go next week. And once I go back, I'll try to do some renewal of the visa. And then if things get better, maybe I'll come sometime later. So the stay is very limited. For some people, it is 6 months. For some people, it may be 1 year. Like some students have OPT and things. They have 1 year time and then they go back. So people are anxious. Oh no, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here again. And similarly, people who work, they have H-1B visas. So they are on a 3 years extension. So they are also worried after 3 years, what will I do? So everyone is trying to find a comfortable place, a place where they can stay. But again, no place is possible to stay without certain qualifications. Unless one is not a student, one cannot stay on student visa. Unless one is not working, one cannot stay on an H-1B visa. And so on and so forth. There are qualifications. So without qualification, even in this material world, in this earthly planet, you are not allowed to stay in one specific place. Similarly, these different planetary systems also have required different qualifications. One may wonder, what is that qualification? So Prabhupada says that so in the lower planetary systems, the lower modes are predominant, mode of ignorance, mode of passion. And as one progresses towards the higher planetary systems, the mode of goodness is higher. Mode of goodness is there is also greater freedom. And there is also greater life, long span of life. And also, there is, as one goes to higher planetary system, there is facilities for enjoying the senses abundantly. So one can enjoy the senses more than being in any of these lower planetary systems. So there is always a hunger to go to that higher planetary systems. Just like people think if they come to America, they can enjoy their life a little more free. They don't have to be abide by the rules and regulations of the society in their countries or whatever. They think that the economic development is easier in America. As there is easy economic development, there is large scope of more sense gratification, and there's more freedom. So there's even larger scope of uh, sensual enjoyment, and therefore people think that I should somehow or the other stay in this place. And similarly, people also think when they read Vedic scriptures, sometimes when they hear about these higher planetary systems, they also think that, oh, maybe going those higher planetary systems looks better than being in this place. So one decides to take a trip to higher planetary systems. But again, as I said, not everyone is qualified to go to any place. So what do? So they study the Vedas, and in that Vedas, there are different prescribed worshipping rules and regulations to different demigods. So Indra, Chandra, Varuna, so there are different processes, different worship practices, different yajnas that one can perform, just like Prabhupada is saying here in this verse, how in Katha Upanishad it is mentioned, Panchagni Vidya. So this is a specific kind of sacrifice that is recommended in Katha Upanishad. So when one practices this or one performs this, one is qualified to go to Brahmaloka, the highest planet in the material world. So similarly, those people who study the Vedas, especially the three Vedas, Sama, Yajur, and Rig Veda, and follow the sacrificial worship processes to worship the demigods or the other sacrifices, they reach to one of the high planetary systems. Now, it is not that simply one can go to any of these planets. So there's a lot of endeavor, even there it is required, austerity and sacrifice so as to reach this planet. But despite reaching all these planets, one must realize that, as we saw in the previous verse, dukkhalayam ashashvatam. The stay is temporary. The stay is not permanent. The visa will expire. One has to come back to the material world, to the earthly planet, as soon as Shine Punye Matya Loka Vishanti. So as soon as the pious credits, as soon as the good activities one has done, which has led them to go to the higher planetary systems, as soon as the results of that are over, then one has to come back to earthly planet. So in that sense, even though one may work so hard and go so far, but then again he has to come down. And that is what is being said here. Punaravartino Arjuna. One may be traveling to any of these planetary systems up, but then again he has to come down. So what is so-called so great gain? Prabhupada in fact gives an example of a ferry. So you see a ferry, sometimes you are at the lower point and sometimes you go at the upper point. But then again you come at the lower point, then you go up in the wheel. So in that sense, there is no great gain. You don't want to go to a place where you again come down. You want to go higher and higher, and eventually a place where there is no dukkhalayam. So dukkhalayam means a place of misery. Because in all these places, whether one is in this earthly planet or the higher planets or the lower planets, all the degree of freedom, the degree of suffering may be different, but what is not freed from the sufferings, especially the fundamental sufferings of birth, death, old age, and disease. Now, these characteristics of material suffering exist in all the material planetary systems. And therefore, Lord is explaining here that someone may think, okay, you might think of going to some other place, but no, any place you go in this material world, you'll again come back. And that is not very good because the entire endeavor that one is making to go to higher places is in the hope of getting freedom from all the miseries and getting true happiness. But despite a certain difference in the quality or standard of happiness and the miseries, that in reality, the total miseries are not vanishing. The total happiness that is one is the highest kind of happiness one is looking is not one is not that one is finding that. It is only a relative increase and decrease of happiness and distress. As coming back to the similar example of being in maybe another country and being in US, one may think, oh, I may have some better benefits being in US, but that does not necessarily mean that one is freed from all miseries. There is some qualitatively material benefits, but that also brings us like a place that we are living in. It's too cold. It's another kind of suffering. So, in other words, in any of the material planetary systems, there is a relative difference in the standard of living, a relative degree of maybe slightly higher material happiness and somewhere else slightly lower material happiness. But in any case, one is not free from the total miseries, and neither one is experiencing the highest happiness. And therefore, Lord is saying that why endeavor for such things? Why don't you come back to me and find the highest benefit? What is the highest benefit? Highest benefit is punarjanmana vidyate. If one comes back to me, mam upetyatu kaunteya. So God is addressing here Arjuna with two names. One is Arjuna himself, and other is Kaunteya in a very loving, dear manner. Why don't you come back to me? Then all the miseries are gone, and all the highest happiness that one can attain is possible. And in fact, I think Sridhar Swami mentions in another place the word Mukunda Sevi, that how glorious is the life of one who serves the Supreme Lord. And he also explains, Prabhupada explains the word Mukunda as how mukti or liberation. The Lord Krishna is one who can give liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And Ananda, he can give the highest happiness. That means he liberates us from all material struggles, brings us back to the spiritual world. And then also one can experience the highest happiness, Ananda, bliss, in the presence, in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, why not take to this devotional process? Therefore, time and again we see that Srila Prabhupada in everywhere he is repeating this principle that Lord Krishna wants us to follow. Take to devotional life. If you worship me, if you render service to me, if you think of me, and as Prabhupada says, that eventually, unless one does not become fully Krishna conscious, one cannot come back to the Lord. What is the qualification to go back to the spiritual world? One has to become Mahatmanaha, one has to become a great soul. And who is that great soul? Who is fully Krishna conscious, who is fully engaging in service. And Prabhupada says, is that so? Is that very difficult? To chant Hare Krishna, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and with whatever material abilities one has got to engage in the service of the Lord. And Prabhupada says, all these activities are also very joyous. The process is so joyous. Susukam kartum avyayam. The process is so joyous. And the destination is also so joyous. Sometimes when people think of destination, they think of a lot of hard work, struggle, miseries, and then they hope, maybe I do this startup, I work so hard, I undergo all the pains that is possible in the hope that maybe someday I will find happiness. In the destination, they have the hope, not in the process. But there is no hope for them in the process. But it is not like that. It is not like some yogi struggling so hard for so many years in hard struggle of austerity and then hoping that one day he will get some freedom. No, this process here, Prabhupada explains, and as Krishna also explains in the 9th chapter, as how this is so joyful. This can be performed so joyfully. And Prabhupada says, one doesn't have to even worry about where one is practicing. One can practice even in one's own home. All the other yoga processes, one has to go to some secluded place, one has to practice restraint from so many different things. But this is so simple to offer foodstuffs to the Lord and take the remnants as prasadam, to hear Krishna Katha from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, to chant his holy names is so simple. Yet it is so sublime that it can give the highest perfection so easily. So therefore, Prabhupada, and even in this purport, Prabhupada explains as that The devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred to the spiritual universe and to specific spiritual planets according to their desires. So one has to be constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. So that is the only effort that we need to put. Someone may say that, oh, why should I put any effort? So sometimes people are so lazy to even put even a little effort. And Prabhupada gives an example of a short story, which Prabhupada says that his spiritual master used to say that there is a person who fell into a well, and someone goes there and gives me a rope and says, please hold this rope. But the person says, oh, I cannot hold this rope, I cannot hold this rope. Then how can he be saved? All that is required to bring him up is given. But if that person is not holding on to it, how can ever he come out of that place? So similarly, Prabhupada says that if we all have independence, we need to use that independence in engaging in Krishna consciousness. If we use our independence, our free will to choose, yes, I will engage myself in Krishna conscious activity. I will chant here or render some practical devotional service. As soon as I use my independence, then Prabhupada says, Krishna will give so many facilities. He will give knowledge. He will give all necessary support for one to come out of this material existence. So yet we are so adamant not to use our independence and free will to serve. Because in all this material world, there is the tendency of trying to become the master and lord over the material nature. Therefore, it is very important for us to hear Krishna Katha. In the association of devotees, when we hear, gradually our anarthas and our impurities will come to know, and also we'll be able to overcome those anarthas in the association of devotees easily. So another point to note is that sometimes, as we were talking about different planetary systems, there is a certain sense of complacency that will come that I'm slightly better situated in my life compared to many others. I have some home or so and so forth. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that the so-called good and bad in this material world is not at all appropriate. It's not correct. There is no real so-called good and so-called bad. Both are bad. The existence in the material world itself is bad. Someone may think, oh, I'm slightly better than others. Someone may think, oh, I'm slightly in a higher planetary system. No. Both are considered to be bad. Because by nature, existence in the material world means that one is away from one's constitutional position, one's real ability to experience Sat Chit and Ananda, the real eternity, the real knowledge, and real bliss that one can experience is one cannot experience in this material world. And one is also always suffering from different kinds of miseries. And therefore, the scriptures say there's no real good in this material world. The only real good is when one transfers oneself to the spiritual world. Therefore, all the endeavors as spiritual practitioners, we must know our destination. Our destination is not some other place, but to the place of Krishna's abode. And Prabhupada, while giving a lecture in New York, he talks about this. He says, just like people are very anxious to travel, people are very anxious to travel. Just like you hear New Year, you hear some holidays, people are saying, oh, we are always traveling. Please come to temple. No. We are traveling. Why are they traveling? Because they see from a travel guide or a travel book or some other advertisement, or they hear from somewhere and they see, oh, there's nice waterfalls there. Oh, there the weather is so nice. I should go there and enjoy it. So like that, as soon as they see a travel guide, they hear and they think, oh, there is a better place and I should go there. And Prabhupada says that there is so much of description about Krishna's kingdom in Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, where again and again it is said that place of the Lord is full of eternity, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. And in varieties of ways there is enjoyment and happiness and bliss. And there is no old age, no death, there is no misery of any kind. So Prabhupada says, if one hears a destination of that kind, shouldn't one desire to travel to that place where there is all happiness? It's like we are all hankering to travel to some other place. Shouldn't we endeavor to travel to that best destination, that true destination, where that is our real destination? So, as we all hanker to travel, the spirit soul is actually free to travel. But in this material engagement, is not free to travel. So this process of Krishna consciousness is the way to purify our material contamination. And it is the way to make us eligible to go to that destination, which is the highest destination. Now, another point that one may raise is that one can see that the people who take to the material endeavors, who travel to different material paths, may fall down. The other kinds of yogis, karma, jnana, hatha, they may eventually rise to a higher planetary systems, but they may fall down. So one may also say that even devotees fall down. Even devotees may not practice all their life, or devotees may sometimes stop being Krishna conscious for some time. But scriptures and Sri Swami says that the fall down of a common man and a devotee is not the same. In fact, it is said that even one who has got a little glimpse of Krishna consciousness, he cannot leave. Prabhupada gives the example of hot sugar juice. Prabhupada says that when one is drinking hot sugar juice, there may be some discomfort, but because the taste of the juice is so nice, he will still take it. So, in the same way, there might be a so-called temporary pause or a so-called temporary gap in someone who is not taking to Krishna consciousness for some reasons. But anyone who has come to Krishna consciousness, he will continue that process. And Prabhupada often gave various examples of his own disciples who left for some time and then they would write to Srila Prabhupada. They would say, Prabhupada, I'm not having association. Prabhupada, I went back to my old life, but I do not feel good. I want to come back. And Prabhupada would immediately say, yes, please come back. And so basically, as soon as one experiences the joy of Krishna consciousness, one even momentarily may be dissuaded by the Maya's influence to go hither and thither, but then again eventually one comes back. And even more so because Krishna is very, very kind. Anyone who renders service to Krishna, Krishna notes it down very carefully. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he always remembered every small service of his disciples and he always thanked them. And as we know, in New York, in the very beginning days, there was a bum who was walking around during the class, and he brings a toilet paper and keeps it in the toilet. And Prabhupada appreciates that this is the beginning of his Krishna consciousness. This is an advancement. So any small service that is done in Krishna consciousness to please the spiritual master, pure devotee of the Lord is always noted, and one always moves forward from there. So therefore, one should always endeavor to engage in some form of the service, which is always noted by the Lord. The Lord is so anxious. Oh, he did this service to me. Let me give him another opportunity. Let me give him another opportunity. And we will see Krishna never leaves us. Krishna is so kind. Krishna will come in various ways to bring us back again to spiritual consciousness, to Krishna consciousness. So even if we want to leave, Krishna will not leave us. This is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. That one can see the reciprocation of the spiritual master and the Lord, who are so kind that even if there is a temporary fall down, they bring back the devotees. This is not the case with the other people who travel to any of material planetary systems on their own abilities. And even in the case of other examples that we find in Srimad Bhagavatam, just like the case of Jada Bharta, the king Bharta, who became a deer, who went to the Bhava platform, just one step from the highest perfection, yet he fell down because he was remembering a deer at the time of death. He got elevated so high, but in the last moment, his attachment was transferred to a baby deer. And therefore, in the next life, he had to take a life of deer. But by the mercy of the Lord, he remembered that, oh, this was the mistake that I did in my previous life. I was supposed to worship the Lord, but I got attached to the deer, and therefore the deer was always very conscious. And he knew what to do and what not to do by the mercy of the Lord. In very next life, again, as Jada Bharta, there is the memory, the remembrance of the highest perfection that one must endeavor. And therefore, Jada Bharta remains dull and dumb because he didn't want to get even diverted an inch from Krishna consciousness and be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. That is because the Lord gave the intelligence. So the Lord is so merciful. Even there is a momentary fall down, it is not like the fall down of other people. Similarly, the case of Chitraketu, who became Vritrasura. Again, although Vritrasura is being killed by Indra, Vritrasura is preparing himself to go back to the spiritual world, while Indra is not. So the devotees of the Lord are always protected. Their fall down is not like the fall down of others. There is a higher plan that the Lord arranges for their protection. Whereas, on the other hand, if other people who travel to any of these material planets and come back to this material planet because of their pious credits are finished, they again become fearful of this material existence. They are again on their own, trying to work hard, get the pious credits, and again go back to some other place. So the fall down of the devotee is not like that of the other materialist or the other yogis. So therefore, a devotee's position is very, very significant. And one other verse which I will talk about briefly is from Srimad Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni is instructing sage Vyasadeva. So again, in this verse, this is a beautiful verse. You can see here, Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido nalabhyate yat brahmatam uparyadaha tallabhyate dukkhavat anyataha sukham kalena sarvatra gavira ramhasam. So Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido. So word kovidaha means one who is philosophically inclined. So one who knows things as they are. Prabhupada says one who is intelligent or kovida is one who knows the things as they are. And who are those? They know the difference between material existence and spiritual existence. They know how material existence is full of miseries and how spiritual existence is full of bliss and the real existence. And what do the intelligent people do? So they endeavor for that purpose. So the action of an intelligent man is different from an action of a man who is not so intelligent. And they work for that endeavor. So they endeavor for that purpose, which is not even obtained by wandering in all these planetary systems. So when one is trying to endeavor, one should endeavor for the best thing, the highest possible thing. Why should one endeavor for something low? And because people are not very intelligent, they endeavor for various different things, very, very petty small things. I want to build a house. I want to get promotion. Very, very petty things. What is that? All that I'm endeavoring for? Very, very small, small things. But Narada Muni says no. They're not very intelligent. They're not Govida. The real Govida The real intelligent people are those who are endeavoring for that which is not even obtainable by wandering all the upper. So here we can see persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. Because in all these places, what are they trying to do is that Tallabhyate dukkhavat anyatha sukham kalena sarvatra veera ramasa. So in all these places that one is trying to just find the sense enjoyment. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. Just as in course of time, we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. So all that endeavor that one is trying to go up and down is just based on increasing one's sense enjoyment. That is why the whole economic development is to increase sense enjoyment. But here Shastras say that one cannot go beyond one's limited ability to enjoy senses. By nature's law, we are provided with a certain specific body that we can only enjoy so much. We cannot eat unlimitedly. We cannot enjoy our senses or indulge our senses unlimitedly. There is a very minute fraction of happiness that we can enjoy by our senses. But artificially thinking that just I somewhere or the other increase this to the maximum and that will maximize my happiness is actually a deep illusion. Because the so-called happiness that we are receiving by this sensual enjoyment is also the source of large amount of miseries that we are undergoing. And even the largest misery is that it is prolonging our existence in this material existence. So what is the use of desiring and endeavoring for all these things which are only extending our miseries, which is not even fulfilling and satisfying our true happiness? So if that is the case, man who is very intelligent must recognize that I should do something which will not give me any of this temporary happiness or this miseries that I'm suffering from. So that's why this process of devotional service is the best thing. So there's another verse which says, what is the harm even if one So there's this previous verse which says, Taktva sadharmam charanam bhujam harer, bhajan apakvo athapate tatho yadi, yatra kwa vabhadram abhud amushyakim, to vardha apto bhajatam svatadmataha. So even if one has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord, may sometimes fall down while in immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, although fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So even little devotional service, one engages, it is such a rare gift, rare gain that one is making in one's advancement in going back to the spiritual world. Even if there is minute fall down, sometimes we may be afraid, oh, will I fall down? Yet there is no danger of being unsuccessful. But not endeavoring to do devotional service is complete failure. Even making an attempt and failing, even engaging for small time, that is much, much better than not engaging at all. And just by being busy in our occupational duties, or I should take care of this and I should take care of this, all temporary activities that we are too focused, then there is all loss. There is no gain. So we must recognize that Krishna is giving us the method and the description of the best destination, best travel destination that we can take to. Well, the process is so nice by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The process is made so simple. Simply we have to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought Gole Kera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. So he has brought the process, very, very joyful process. Simply by engaging in this joyful process, we can go to the highest spiritual destination, which is not possible by any other means, neither by Sputnik, Apollo, so-called any of these spaceships, neither by all the hard work one is doing in different ways, but simply by engaging in this process of chanting and taking prasadam, one can be freed from all material contaminations, become fully qualified, uh, fully Krishna conscious, and go back to the spiritual world. So, therefore, this verse is saying that there is no gain in actually traveling all these planetary systems and still coming back to this material world and suffering. Rather, one should endeavor to go back to Krishna, and by which there is no material existence, there is no suffering, and there is all bliss. I'll stop here and see if there are any questions or comments.
I have a question.